Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a very informal video. I just missed you and I wanted to sit and chat. I've been on a break for quite some time and I frankly have been off and on break since about May. So it's been a minute. And during that time I've made a lot of art, but I haven't actually taken the time to show any of it off or talk about it. So that's what we're doing here. And I feel like the only way for me to do this right is to do it in chronological order. So we're going to start with the first art piece I started in May, which was radically different than what it ended up being. But it's right back here. Now, I'm a notorious perfectionist, whatever that means, and I'll pretty much always think that like a piece of art or something is never fully completed. And I'd say so about this one as well. This is a clay sculpture of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It is a modernized interpretation of her. And this is specifically, Our Lady of Guadalupe to me is an ancestral mother, is very indigenous mother, and that's what this is. This is like a Mother Earth archetype. So you can see we have some of the typical Guadalupe imagery, the crescent moon at the bottom, the like open gesture, as well as the radiant light behind her. But you'll notice that there's no cloak, there's no shawl. Instead, I just have her hair nicely braided and laid down. Part of me rediscovering a lot of my ancestry and I guess trying to figure out what being indigenous means to me. Braiding my hair has been a huge part of that, if that makes sense. And that's reflected here. It to me symbolizes the unbroken line of matriarchs and familial lines that twist and tie and intermingle to create me, the braid, if that makes sense. Oh, and then for this image, I wanted to do a very synchronized version. So this is synchronized with images from Coatlicue and Tonantzin, who are Mexica or Aztec deities of the earth and varying aspects. Coatlicue, or grandmother serpent, is represented here by the skirt that is present. The snake, or the braids up here, were also originally sculpted as snakes and then were rolled together to form hair and to form a braid, and there's a lot of symbolism for Coatlicue in that. We also have a literal serpent down here. It's not being crushed by her feet or anything, because I don't believe in that. These are corn plants that are growing up. They also remind me of hands, and they specifically have like 5 tassels at the top. Because as I was sculpting this, she said that it's in memory or to commemorate the hands that reach up to her in prayer, the hands of the people, the hands of the earth that all reach up and beg for protection, for blessing, etc. And they're growing out of the earth, which is represented here by like a mantle of clear white or very bright gold corn at the very top. Underneath and the base, rather than having a cherub, I have a step pyramid, again to really heavily synchronize that indigenous Mexica energy that Our Lady of Guadalupe just kind of carries. And it is in this synchronized aspect that I work most closely with Guadalupe, which is also why I will call her Guadalupe instead of calling her Mary or Our Lady of Guadalupe, because I believe Mary is only one aspect of this being and that there is more inside of this package. And the pyramid down here has 4 tiers or 4 steps because it's the number of the material plane. It's the number of the earth. It symbolizes balance and earthly creation. Then it's studded with different rainbow gem corn that I grew. And yeah, that's what it is. Her eyes are also gem corn, but she doesn't actually have a finished face. Often when I am meditating or, you know, trying to channel her, there's not a very clear face. It's often either like a mixture of other faces that you've seen, a mixture of like the IRL matriarchs in your life, or it's just kind of void. So she has the basic shapes to suggest a face, but there's no face here. And that's very, very intentional to me. I used monster clay to sculpt this. I don't know if I actually said that, so it is still a little bit pliable. And I might eventually change it and give her a face or something else, but this really kicked off my whole art. This kicked off my devotional art kick, I guess we'll say, because I don't have a better word. This right here. And I just want to take some time to appreciate it. Oh, and then these are dried carnations that were all offerings for the Assumption of Mary. And then I strung them up and dried them, and now they will adorn her statue. Okay. All right, Mama, you're gonna go back here. But you can still be in the shot. And let me put this guy up. I'm gonna pause this really quick while I go get the other things. All the next things I have to share with you are paintings that I did over the course of the past few months, and each of them are dedicated to a different spirit. They're all caked with symbolism that pertains to that spirit, but also my relationship to that spirit. So in that sense, they are very private, and a lot of them have very tiny details that represent like a lot of knowledge, a lot of research, and a lot of work. So I'm sure you'll be able to notice things that even I didn't notice or consciously intend to add to it. And whatever fun symbolism you pull out, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So the first thing we start is with this guy. Take a minute, soak it all up, soak it all up. Now, this one was commissioned by a certain Queen of Heaven, Lady Aset, Miss Is, as I'm sure you can tell. This one is representative of transformation and specifically the process of rebirth. We have the scarab, which is a symbol of rebirth. It also represents Kepra, or it's an avatar of Ra, who is the sun god, and so it's often associated with the rising sun or the very early morning sun. And he's rising in this, which is also extra symbolism. The diamond around it symbolizes physical creation and the material realm and the balance therein. You can see we have kind of this light, dark heavens, or this light heaven, and this dark underworld, and it is very much meant to symbolize that. A lot of myth, especially for Egyptian or Kemetic myth, speaks about the barge of Ra going through the underworld over the course of night, essentially. And on a anthropological scientific front, it's a way to explain where the sun goes at night. But from a more spiritual standpoint, it explains the actual functions that different deities and beings serve in the process of renewal. Because as the sun is reborn every day, we are reborn every day. And that's what this is. Maybe I'll call it rebirth. Okay. Where's the done pile? The done pile can be like right here, I think. I'll just put it down. That's the first one. The second one I worked on, in truth, I've repainted this twice. I had just one big figure in the center with like a large spiral as the face, and I just wasn't into it. Like, it wasn't what I wanted, it wasn't what I visioned. I had fucked up the proportions and then just committed to it. Even in the last painting I show you and throughout this, I've been very into gradients. I've been very into like blending colors on a background into different ways, and I think you'll see that develop. You can definitely see a lot of it in here. The bottom section transitions from like a very light blue to symbolize like the water that is in the material realm, to symbolize the life and everything that is physically here in the center. And then it gets darker to symbolize death and decay, and lighter to symbolize resurrection and renewal. This one is a little bit different. It's not so much about a process. It's a literal image. This is Santa Muerte. This one obviously is La Flaquita. This is our skeleton lady. And I've repainted this several times, which is why she doesn't have hands. Because I keep messing them up and I don't like the way they look. And if I'm going to give her a painting, I want it to look a certain way. Alright, and for those of you who are aware of Santa Muerte or have worked with her, she is a being that's worked with in many different colors and in many different aspects, and each of her colors has a different significance or has a different purpose, and my goal with this painting was to represent all of them. Now, La Dorada, the gold, is centered and the largest on here because that's the aspect that I work with most principally. You can see her three main colors are like the border around her. Normally when you're a beginner working with Santa Muerte, they advise you to work with her in threes and triplicate in her red, white, and black aspect. So those are all represented here. We have the black aspect down here, which has been painted as a road. She's very known for her road clearing and for the path ahead. It's also symbolic of every road ends in death. Every road goes to her. Every road belongs to her. All of them will go to her. You are on your long little journey just to get back to her. That's the symbolism. The yellow down here, both a road, obviously, but also symbolizes health. Her yellow aspect is when you work with for health often. It can also be worked with for prosperity or money or good luck or even sickness. So it varies person to person, place to place, and cult to cult. It is what it is. We have her nice little scythe up here. It pierces the side down here, which is all blue and purple, which is, again, a very popular aspect of Santa Muerte, but not one that I work with so often, so the blue is really understated. And then the scythe itself turns into a river of blood down here just to symbolize, death. It is what it is. She severs it with, I get the image of her severing like this cord of life with the actual blade, and then the blade and the staff then dripping with the blood of whoever was just taken, whoever was just killed. Whoever killed makes it sound like she did it, like Santa Muerte is out here murdering people. When no, she's not a serial killer. It's fate, it's destiny. This is when you were supposed to die, and she's just like, she's just like the death alarm clock, I guess, in this case, in this metaphor. Anyway, the white back here is meant to mimic angel wings. Some statues will paint Santa Muerte with wings, the very angel of death vibe. The triangle up here, or the halo up here, symbolizes the power of the Holy Trinity within her cult, within her context. She is given these powers by God and works through God and works by God's will. So I wanted that represented. I do work with her as a Catholic saint, so like that is represented here. And you'll notice this is the same gold as the gold that makes up her silhouette. That is not an accident. We also have some radiating red out here. I find red to be very vibrant, very life-giving, very powerful, and so I wanted it to radiate that. Around the edges, you'll notice a bit of a dark color. It is purple blended with whatever the background color is. So here we have purple and red, down here there's purple and black, and down here there's purple and white. And purple is an aspect that you work with for psychic gifts, for spirituality. I also hear for addiction, and then for like transmutation, for like if you're a really angry person and you don't want to be an angry person anymore, it can help you transmute some of that rage into like clarity or whatever it might be for the case. And because I view purple as like a foundational tool to connect with her, like you need your psychic gifts to connect to her because she's a spirit. So like I find the purple to be so foundational that it's the border, that it's what holds this whole package together. There's also some extra symbolism. She has her right hand on the scythe. I know it's turned around on the camera, but she has her right hand on the scythe, and then the center one will be holding a crystal ball. I tried to do a globe, and frankly, I just don't have the artistic capability for a globe right now. My plan is to do like a crystal ball or like a gazing ball with an eye inside of it. So when that's done, you'll be the first to see. I'm gonna take a drink of coffee. And we can keep going. The next one I painted on canvas. And after doing the something with the figure, I was like, fuck figures. I'm not doing a like literal representation anymore. I'm done. I'm over it. Good. After this one, and then like the Guadalupe sculpture, I was like, human figures, gone, out of it. So my next one is much more abstract, and it starts to, the intention of this one is to embody the energy of the being, to feel the way it feels to be in contact with this being. And this is what we're looking at. It's very, very shiny gold and yellow, lots of orange, lots of sheen, lots of red down here. This is something I painted during Ganesha Chaturthi, which is the festival for Ganesha, the Hindu god of wisdom. And even translating it like that is technically a misnomer, but we're not getting into technicalities here. For his feast, it's like an 11-day long thing, so it is very, very involved, and I painted this over the course of it. He is talked about in traditional context having radiating energies that can be the color of turmeric, that can be golden, and that can be red, or like a reddish brown. Again, within the same context, he's associated with the root chakra, and that has a color of red. Which is why down here we get to these really dark gradients of red. My original plan was to do just like a almost completed circle of gold in the center with orange around, and then fading and fading and fading into a deeper red through, again, gradient. I didn't like that. So I did a layering technique where I made a paste out of turmeric and an anointing oil that was also made for Ganesha, and mixed that together to put down the paint, and that's where we get all this like texture from here. These are all little pieces of turmeric suspended throughout, which turmeric is heavily associated with Ganesha, and it's one of his sacred plants, so there's a lot of symbolism literally caked into it. And I love that it just ended up being a mirror, because truly that's the purpose of Ganesha, is to be a bit of a mirror, is to be wisdom, is to be something that you embody and attempt to reflect as a mirror, but also your entire experience of Ganesha is a reflection of yourself and your understanding of wisdom, of your own wisdom. So it being reflective, it being very mirror-like, becomes extra intentional, you know, it gathers so many more layers of depth and meaning. And it's so simple. Oh. All right. So after doing this turmeric painting, I was like, oh yeah, I can't forget that I am a multimedia artist. And truly that is my favorite way to make art, is with like different things and combining different mediums, whether it be paint, pencil, clay, paint, in this case, plant and paint. We go to our next painting. This one is, again, much more abstract. If you can see some of the symbolism, I'm sure you can guess who it already is. This is Our Lady of Guadalupe again. but this time she is done almost entirely in plants. The background is a gradient. Again, we have a lot of different pink floating about with some red. And then you'll notice that there are a lot of different textures on here. There's a lot of different plants on here. I had ground all of these different powders up and used them by sprinkling them over the wet paint to get it to stick to the board, and they all have different symbolism. For example, the edges here symbolize her protection and what that is like. So it has a lot of herbs associated with the protection that comes from Our Lady of Guadalupe. So we have rose thorns, pine, chili, etc. Down here we have lots and lots of pink rose to symbolize her compassion, as well as the prayer that is going to her. So this is very like her loving energy. Someone I actually showed this to said that they look like serpents, which is perfectly valid. We already talked about symbolism and synchronicity with the statue. Same applies here. Down here we'll start up here. Up here we have marigold and sunflower to symbolize her divinity, as well as the creator, who I view as a part of Our Lady, but distinctly separate. Like, yes, she's an aspect of God, but God the creator is separate from her, which is why the crown has some distance in here. The body or the figure of Our Lady is completely made out of red rose and aloe vera bark to symbolize her love and healing. She has a very, very warm energy, very much like drinking cinnamon tea. The very center of it is actually cinnamon and red chili to symbolize her flaming heart, or her immaculate heart, which I think is kind of cheeky, frankly. Like, it's a flaming heart, so I put flaming chili on it. And then under here in the moon aspect, I actually have a different kind of powder that is more associated with death and more associated with La Santa Muerte, who I also view as being very closely tied to her. But the moon here is meant to embody the complementary aspects to the sun, which is kind of up here with the crown. And they're meant to bring balance to one another. So we have life and creation, and then death and decay down here. And they balance between the embodiment of life, which radiates compassion and love. I'm pretty sure this one is like rue and sage. Rue and sage to symbolize her wisdom and the wisdom that comes when her presence is here. Ooh, that's interesting. And then right here on this mantle, this strong line, this is all sweet corn, which again symbolizes Tonatzin and her pre-Columbian associations and synchronicities. And it's literally meant to be like corn growing out of the earth. Like, this is the top of the earth, this is the crust of the earth covered in corn, which grows to sustain and feed people. The first humans are also supposed to be made of corn masa, so ground corn, essentially in the same way. And then the very center of the earth is a combination of everything else. All the other powders were powdered together to blend up and make that nice, like, rich brown color for the earth. That is also reinforced symbolically because Our Lady of Guadalupe, as such an earthly being, is so tied to nature itself that you could argue she comes from nature, and that all of her, if you were to put her in a blender and blend her up, you'd get nature. That's what I did with these plants here. And now, I believe we're on to my most recent art, and probably the last one I'll show for this video. And you can see, again, we're doing the gradient, lots of nice purples going on here, lots of swirls. This one, again, we're doing a kind of heavens, underworld, material plane sort of vibe. This one is for Hecate. And I know we're all over the map with these names and faces, but I promise it's okay. I promise it's all fine. I promise they're all good. Okay. And this one is just like layered with different symbolism and stuff. A lot of them are going to be covered with silver paint. And then there's going to be some other details that are added in later. But we have a tree of life, which is also a crossroads. And Hecate is an embodiment, or the one who stands at the crossroads and can see the paths ahead. Which is why this is like a triple thing. You'll notice a lot of threes. There are 9 planetary glyphs. There are 3 phases of the moon, 3 eyes. There are 3 distinct realms or places of being. Down here we have the roots of the tree of life, if you will, which are rooted in death, decay, the earth, ancestors, the realm of the dead, the physical, like the center trunk, which you see has some life and stuff growing off of it, to symbolize the material plane, the space that we grow out of and exist to. And then we have the 2 branches that, while they go on different paths, they both go towards the heavens. And then again with this guy, I'm probably going to go through and do some nice glitter silver ribbon around the edges because I think that looks really cool. And yeah, those are my arts. Thank you so much to everybody who watched. Thank you for liking, subscribing, following, and all the other things. That is all I have for you today. It is peace I offer you, and it is in peace I leave you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.